It's always fun to do this. Just out of curiosity, raise your hands. How many people have seen the original film Oldboy? Okay, cool. So there's a lot of newbies in the house. Your mind is going to be blown. As a fan of the original, this is a very faithful adaptation, and it has actually new twists and turns, which is really appreciated as well for fans of the original. Few quick announcements. As you know, today the invite for Frozen went out on next Monday, so hopefully you should have received that. You'll get invites for other things. Obviously, any of your friends that didn't make it in, you could tell them to listen to the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith podcast in iTunes, and they could hear this Q&A for free on the day of release. Other announcements, as you'll notice, there's gentlemen here with high-res security cams, night vision goggles, and they'll be monitoring the audience during the screening, because what we really don't want to happen in a movie this beautiful is for somebody to take out their phone and start texting or emailing or Facebooking or whatever ING type of thing you want to do. So just a beautiful lobby outside. Take it outside if you need to do something like that. Otherwise, you will be asked to leave. So stay for the movie. It's pretty good. I think you're going to appreciate it. Afterwards, we have a fantastic Q&A lined up with exactly what your invite said. Screenwriter Mark Protosevich, but you know, there's another guest tonight that I'm going to introduce right now, one of the greatest working directors around, Spike Lee, who directed this fine film.
Thank you. Glad to be here because I'm a teacher. I'm a professor. For the past 15 years, I'm even current. Had class yesterday. I'm a professor at NYU Graduate Film School. I'm also artistic director at the Graduate Film School, so I care very much about the education of film, about teaching young filmmakers. So thank you for coming, and we're looking forward to intelligent questions. After Mark and I will be entertaining intelligent questions from the audience. So thank you for coming.
What'd you guys think of the film? Well, thanks a lot for staying for the Q&A. Please stay in your seats afterwards. They're going to get out of here when the Q&A is over, and then I have 2 trivia questions for you. One is about Spike, and one is about Mark, and the winners of those trivia questions will get a very rare promotional umbrella, like the one that you saw in the movie. So they are not easy questions. Well, one of them might be slightly easy, but please stay in your seats after the Q&A, and we'll be doing all of that. Now, without further ado, it's my absolute honor to introduce the director of this fine film, Spike Lee, and of course the screenwriter, Mark Protosevich. Thanks for coming down.
Let's die.
In the house, do or die.
So we're gonna start
in the house.
We're gonna start moderated, then we're gonna open it up to the crowd. But we're gonna really kind of analyze the film and talk about your careers. And Spike, I've just got to say, this is a personal honor for me. When you were younger, and when I was younger, in my freshman year at USC Film School, there was a program just like this.
I didn't get in. They didn't let me in there.
NYU ain't so bad.
I'd have a high enough score in GRE.
I went there for theater. I had to apply 3 times to get in, so it took me a little while too.
It worked out.
It worked out.
I liked the football.
There was a class like this every Thursday night called Cinema 466, which would show a movie. And when I was a freshman, I think the first or second movie they showed in 1989 was Do the Right Thing, and you showed up for a Q&A, and it was absolutely exhilarating. We loved the movie, and we're going to talk about it briefly before we get to tonight's movie. But thanks for coming here to LA Film School. And actually, that's kind of my first question, film school in general. You went to film school. As we sit here at the lovely Los Angeles Film School, what's something really important that you got out of your film school experience? And then Mark, you can answer the question as well.
Well, I went to film school in a different era. And there was no digital filmmaking. And the only reason why I went to film school, myself, the great Ernest Dickerson, who shot all my films, because we needed access to equipment. So we didn't care about a motherfucking degree. We didn't care about the MFA. All we wanted was access to equipment, our classmates were our crewmates. The school had an agreement with SAG, so we had professional actors, and we were able to use the facilities of the school. And to be honest, we didn't expect teachers to teach us. We just wanted, they could show us how to, fundamental stuff, how to read a light medium. As far as storytelling, stuff like that, we just wanted the equipment. We wanted to make our films. And as I said before, Ang Lee was in my class. But the pivotal moment for us was when the great Jim Jarmusch's film, Strange in Paradise, became a hit. Because when you're in film school, you study the greats, but we don't know Scorsese, we know Francis, we know Woody Allen, we know none of them people. A lot of people who study were dead. But when somebody that you saw every day in school made it, that's when it was doable. So when Jim Jarmusch's film, Strange in Paradise, you all should please see this film if you haven't seen it. You should know about it. And we all followed everything Jim did, I did for She's Gonna Happen. We went to Cannes, and what he did with that film was the model that we all followed behind that.
Mark?
Yeah, I went to Columbia College, Chicago. Anybody from Chicago? Very good. I went to Columbia College, Chicago, and it was about around 1979. I was there, and it was in the Midwest. The film schools were generally very theory and history oriented. Columbia was the place that was taught by working professionals. Everybody who taught there had some experience actually making films. And it was a great experience for me. I went there as an undergrad. My BA, my first film class was in my freshman year of college, and cutting 16 millimeter film with an editing block.
Who's touched film here?
I know, that's what I'm curious about.
Good outline. Now all you people touch film. Lying.
I mean, we had a hand cranked Bolex, going out with a 16 millimeter Bolex with the 3-lens turret and threading a projector. I really, there's a great romanticism for actual film for me. But for me, it was, I grew up on the southwest side of Chicago in a very blue-collar neighborhood. My mother was a teacher. My dad was an electrician. It wasn't a place that nurtured the arts. This school became a great haven for me. And it was, a large group of like-minded people converging in this place. And it was, the school at that time was still sort of finding its identity. It's become huge now. It's the biggest film school in the Midwest. One of the biggest in the country. And but at the time I was there, it was this funky little place with some really unique teachers and a unique philosophy. And it was great. It really did change my life because it was being sort of thrust into a world where all of a sudden I was with people who thought the way I did. And in the neighborhood I grew up in, I had a few friends, and we were, my neighborhood wasn't the place where we could sit around and talk about Bergman and Fellini and silent Lon Chaney films. We had a bunch of guys. I was one of those kids making Super 8 movies with my high school friends, and so going to Columbia was a really great experience for me, and it really did sort of instill this idea that the teachers were very encouraging in terms of, you can do this. You can do this, and
well, it's two different perspectives on film school. Spike wanted the equipment to get out there and make it, and you really found a safe haven with your faculty and obviously studying film. We're going to hit 2 of your previous films, just one from each of you really quick before we get to tonight's film. Spike, only because it's such a film that's always inspired me. Just on an intellectual note, Do the Right Thing, which your screenplay was Oscar nominated for Best Original Screenplay that year. I'm just curious, just to pick just one or two things from it, but really the scene with the racial slurs, when the characters face straight into the camera and each have their own brief monologues. Do you remember when that idea first occurred to you? Because I think it's one of the bold many reasons why Do the Right Thing rightly received that nomination.
I don't know, I just thought of it.
Was it always the way that it ended up in the film, or did you have different iterations?
Nah, it's the way it was. I mean, people think that stuff. They don't say it most of the time.
So those five characters, like each taking a different racial trope and just spewing it straight at the camera, just came
Right at the camera.
Okay. Since Universal
But
produced,
here's the thing, though. You got to set it up because it follows. You have to set up what it follows. The scene before is the scene between Mookie and Pino, where Mookie tells him, "Look, who's your favorite athlete?" He says Magic. Who's your favorite actor? He says Eddie. He says, and he says they're all black, but Pino says not niggas. It was crazy, you know, the way Pino felt. And so often this happens where if African Americans achieve some type of level, they're not black anymore. Like Will Smith's not black. I mean, I think Hollywood says that, you know, once they become a certain level, he's not black anymore. He appeals to everybody. So when you appeal to everybody, you're not black. And that's something that we wanted to show that crazy thinking that Pino and a lot of people still have today.
what did the studio think of that scene and others? Like, as a young filmmaker, it's easy to
No, we had the total support of
Great.
Universal Pictures. Tom Pollock, when the film debuted in Cannes, there was tremendous pressure upon Tom Pollock, head of Universal Pictures, to not let this film be released. The black people, you have to do your research. Look at the reviews. Look at reviews. Back in the day when it came out, I was responsible for people being killed. The black people that run amok and riot all across the country, and also said I was responsible for David Dinkins losing. That year, that September came out June 30th. That September was the Democratic primaries between Ed Koch, who we were sick of, who really, he was the person that was responsible for the racial climate in New York City. And so the film specifically was made to get his ass out of there. And that's what I'm saying. If you listen to Sam Jackson's character, Mr. Oldboy, he keeps saying, register to vote, register to vote. So, no, and the thing about it though, it was David Denby, Jack Kroll, and Joe Klein. And it was just a total stupidness because it was very disrespectful to the intelligence of the African-American movie audience. Like, we didn't have the motherfucking intelligence to distinguish what was going on in the film. White folks could see Arnold Schwarzenegger kill motherfuckers left and right, but Mookie throwing a garbage can through Sal's famous pizzeria window was going to incite black people to riot. First of all, and also you have to remember, this is before the LA riots. We forecast that. We had the crystal ball. Rodney King and the riots after with the cops walking free. That's what started the riot. Not Mookie throwing the garbage. You look at 68. What was the riots? When Dr. King got assassinated. Urban areas went up in smoke around America, and in the summers before that. So, the black people want to riot is going to be out something that, not a movie. You know, I see these guys never ever apologize because those reviewers, because a large part, we lost a lot of money because white people were scared to see the movie. I think it was David Denby said, please hope this film doesn't open up in your neighborhood. Spike Lee's planted dynamite under every seat. And there's going to be blood in his hand because black are going to riot.
As a white kid, I took all my friends to see it. And
Thank
I paid
you.
again, even though I saw it for free. Just so you know. One more question about that, just out of curiosity, because I love the script. I had read that originally Sal and Mookie have a little bit of reconciliation at the end. and that it was something that you excised either from the final cut or before you even shot.
No, we never shot that.
So what was it? What was the scene, and why did you decide to cut it?
It was never, I mean, it wasn't like that, because first of all, the ending was not what you just said, because the film was set up at Paramount Pictures. And they wanted me to change the ending because they wanted Sal and Mookie to hug at the end and sing "We Are the World." And I wasn't doing that. And then I flipped it to a gentleman at Universal who gave it to Tom Pollock, and he said, "Let's do it." So it was never going to be like a huggy, feel-good thing at the end between Mookie and Sal.
I kind of figured as much. Mark, your first produced film, The Cell, in 2000, it was an original script. What brought the initial idea to life of this complicated concept of being able to go into someone's brain using virtual reality and to get a serial killer to explain where his last alive victim is, who's in a coma?
I can't imagine two more distinctly different films.
that we started to talk about? Don't worry, we'll get to Oldboy right after that.
I've always been interested in science fiction, in dark subject matter. I'm interested in psychology, probably most of all, of stories that try to get to the core of who people are. And it's reflected in this film. I'm completely intrigued by the idea that we present a certain self to the world. We want to be perceived a certain way, when in reality we are very complex individuals with fears and vulnerabilities and demons. And the most terrifying thing, I think, for most people is to share that with the world, because the fear is that we're going to be then attacked because of that, because it's perceived as weakness. And so in some ways, The Cell was a way to explore. At the time, I was incredibly intrigued by serial killers, incredibly intrigued by the idea that in some instances that serial killers could be made, not born, because of parental abuse. Interesting themes connected to and what effect that can have on people. I also, I've always, I think I'm interested in stories about transformation, about, a character who is one way at the beginning. Some unusual event occurs that forces them to confront who they really are, and then for the latter part of the film, they've become they're a different entity. But also in terms of this, there are many stories that, there are Star Trek episodes, there are science fiction novels that deal with the idea of painting, of being able to see the dreamscape. And I love dreams. I'm fascinated. I was hearing people, the last thing anybody wants to hear is what you dreamt last night. Not me. I'm totally intrigued by people's dreams, and I have some incredibly fucked up dreams. So
you proved it. You proved it on film, my friend. One of the advantages of being a writer who's not directing their own work is that you get to observe storytelling habits of others. And I'm anything interesting you observed about working with Tarsem and obviously Spike on this film, just as how the director interprets the script and your work relationship?
Directors are very unique individuals. And
so are writers.
And
something that stuck with you from Tarsem, and something that's a unique habit from Spike.
It was Tarsem's first film, and Tarsem was, coming out of commercials, and two things. I love Tarsem. He's a character. You're a character too. Didn't even get a smile out of that.
Tough business.
But Tarsem was at the time, Tarsem is so visual. I mean, he's just, everything boils down to the visual. And I think he's evolving as a filmmaker. I think he, Tarsem, in talking to him, wants to do something that is more character driven. I think The Fall showed aspects of that.
Yeah.
I like The Fall quite a bit, but I think during The Cell, I think Tarsem was so focused on creating a visual spectacle that I think there were maybe some aspects of the script were sacrificed because of that in terms of character and storytelling.
Was there a unique storytelling habit about Spike that you noticed? And Spike, I'm going to ask you the same question about Mark. It's something you observed with him about being a writer, because you were a writer yourself, obviously. Because everyone has different habits. There's no one way.
Mark wrote a great script, and so that's what really, that's why
Spike directed the hell out of it. So
absolutely.
That's why Josh and I want to do this.
Getting to tonight's film, Oldboy, I'm going to mispronounce it unfortunately, but Garon Tsuchiya wrote the manga for Weekly Manga Action from 1996 to 1998, and there were 7+ episodes or chapters, if you want to call them, of Oldboy.
The original source.
Yeah, the original source material.
Japanese.
Which was Japanese, and then became a Korean film in 2003, 10 years ago, by Park Chan-wook, a fantastic film in 2003. And you guys, and you guys had the pleasure of being able to bring it to American audiences in English, worldwide audiences in English, and to do your own reinterpretation, which I thought was very honorable. You honored the original work, but you also did new things as well. Just starting with the genesis of the project, Mark, what kind of shape was it in when you came on? And then Spike, I'm just curious what it was like when you came on. Because I know that when you were on for a little while, Steven Spielberg was going to make it. And with the kind of incest plotline, people were a little surprised at that. Of course, they forgot about his movie, oh my God, I'm blanking for a second. The Purple.
1941?
No, the Purple.
Color
Purple. The Color Purple, thank you. Which had that as a major plot point. So, what was it like when you found it, and Spike, what was it like when you came on?
I became involved with the project 5 years ago. 5 years ago, right around now, November, and yeah, actually, I would have to say that when I first heard about the project was about probably a year or two before that, and Roy Lee, one of the producers, had acquired the remake rights, and I had heard that Justin Lin was going to direct it, and that both Sam Jackson and Nick Cage were the main character. I will say that when I heard that there was going to be an Oldboy remake, my initial reaction was, really? And so I understand that reaction from people, and so I get that sort of knee-jerk response if you have the tremendous affection for the original film. I get it, and I just hope people sort of keep an open mind with our film. But about 5 years ago, I got a call from Will Smith, whom I had worked with on I Am Legend, and Will's always been very supportive. We had talked about trying to work again, and he called, and not like he calls me every day. This was an unusual day, and he called and said, I want you to write my next movie. It's a remake of Oldboy. One thing, you got to come out and meet the director. The director's Steven Spielberg. And I go, okay. And 2 days later, I was on a plane to LA, and Steven a few times, and I think this is one thing, he wanted to go there. He wanted to go to the dark places. He wasn't unafraid. Ultimately, what happened was that over a year of extended deal negotiations, and deal negotiations can go on forever.
Right, there was a lawsuit by the original manga guy, I believe.
I don't even know
Yeah, the whole
everything.
thing- the
That
whole
it
thing
was,
fell apart.
but it literally it was a year, and Steven pulled out.
But had you already
of the
written your
project.
script by that point? Because
I had
just when Spike
what I wrote was during that time I wrote like a 35 page treatment.
Okay.
That I had really poured my heart and soul into, and really grew attached to the project. It became, you know, whatever motivations I had to get involved with in the beginning. At the time of that, when I had written the treatment, it was all about I need to see this through. I need to get this made. And so the producers wanted to go forward with the project. I wanted to go forward with the project. So we worked with them we worked together without anyone attached until we got to a point where we felt the script was really strong, and I'm very proud of the script. I really, it was a
great adaptation. It was a
very passionate project for me, and so then we send the script out and try to get an actor and a director involved.
Spike, that leads to you. What was the project like when you came to it, and what were your
Well, I
thoughts?
didn't know all that history. And my agents who are here, thank you, CCCA in the house, they sent me the script. So I met Mark and we came down to New York. We talked about it.
That was a good day.
Yes, it was. And the key was Josh, though. And Josh met with Park. Because Josh was not going to make this film without Park's blessing. And Park gave it, and he said, please make your own film. Do not try to do the same exact thing that we did. So that was, I mean, even without hearing that story from Josh, that was always my mindset that we had to make it different. I don't use the word remake. Not use the word remake. There's a reinterpretation. And the same way that when Julie Andrews sings My Favorite Things in The Sound of Music, that's not the way John Coltrane played it. It's not the same thing. Many people sang My Funny Valentine. That's not the same way Miles Davis played it on trumpet. You've heard many, many renditions of national, like Star Spangled Banner. I'm sorry. When Marvin Gaye sang it, when Jimi Hendrix played it, when Whitney Houston sang it, it's a different thing. And so we had to put our thing on this and still respect the original source. You know, it's a great film, and he's an amazing director. And I said before, the key thing is that if Park had not given his blessing to Josh, he was not doing this film. He wasn't doing it.
I want to talk about your creative habits for a second, Spike, because just a few more questions before we get into the Oldboy spoilers. Podcast if they haven't seen it. But when you sit down, Spike, because you're a writer as well, when you sit down to write, how many hours a day do you write? Just as
I can only do three.
Three?
Three or
Okay.
four, that's it.
How important is outlining to your process?
Well, I just put stuff on 5x7 index cards and put them in a box, and then once I have enough stuff, I just put it in order from beginning, middle to end.
If you get writer's block, what do you do to battle it?
Don't have it.
Good. That's great.
That's why I only write 3 hours a day.
I'm going to ask you the same
People
question.
say they write 8 hours. No one's writing 8 hours.
I agree. They're lying.
You're sharpening pencils, looking at your email and TV, and you're not, there's not 8 solid hours. It doesn't happen. Rarely does it happen.
I want to talk about your habits as a director before we move on to Mark. How important is just something as simple as storyboarding? Some directors love it, some directors rarely use it.
I don't storyboard. I mean, unless it's extensive. The ride sequence is storyboarded, Do the Right Thing. Assassination Malcolm X, that was storyboarded.
So otherwise,
The war, the battle scenes in Miracle St. Anna were storyboarded. I've never done that before, but I don't really rely on massive storyboards.
when you come to set, how long do you take as a director when you have 80 to 100 people around you ready to follow your direction to say, okay, since because I asked this only because you don't storyboard. This is where the camera goes. These are the scenes we're going to have. I'm guessing you would walk in with a shot list, or do you do that?
Never shot list. We come prepared.
Okay.
Come to work.
I
We start shooting an hour after call.
I was on set for the entire shoot. Spike is prepared. He knows what he wants every day.
You know, Spike, it's interesting because a lot of directors don't always have the screenwriters there, although that's been changing in recent years. What did you find the advantage of having the writer there?
And that was great. I mean, if we had a question, Mark was right there. And I have no problems with writers being on the set. They're helpful.
You managed to do, just one more question about your process, you managed to do the hallway hammer fight, as it was known from the original film, a little differently here, but as one big take.
Well, there's a cut in it.
Is there? Okay, wow, I couldn't track it. But it was still a long take, we'll agree on. You did no storyboarding for that. I find that really interesting.
No, yeah, we had the stunt coordinators. Jeff Norville really did. But,
okay. Mark, same question?
one day you'll see the entire fight scene. One day.
We'll get to the editing a little on the later side. Mark, same question for you. How many hours a day do you write? If you could pick.
You know.
Come on, Spike, just spit it out quick. Don't make an excuse.
No. I think I had a psychology teacher once in college say that you're only really capable of focus on any one thing at the max 5 hours a day, and that's a good day for me. I used to write in a huge chunk in the morning. I used to get up early and write like from, maybe it is about 3, like 9 to 12 or 8 to 12. Do a really good, solid effort there, and then a lot of times I would take the afternoon off and then maybe do a little bit more. Now I'm on this. When you have a dog and you like to walk your dog and enjoy those walks and appreciate those walks, you have a walk in the morning and you have a walk in the afternoon. I sort of build my writing around my schedule around the dog walk. So I do about maybe 2 hours in the morning, and then I do a good, maybe hope for another couple hours in the afternoon.
Spike uses index cards. Do you use something like that for outlining?
I'm a treatment guy. I have found, just for my own, the way I work, that I like working from a fairly extensive treatment. Anywhere from, minimum 15 pages, maximum probably about 35. I mean, the treatment for this was pretty extensive, and the state that I always try to go for is when I'm seeing the movie in my head. And a lot of times you're not even really writing. When I'm even writing the treatment, I've done a lot of thinking. And initially it does start with scribbling on index cards, and I'll do a lot of handwritten stuff first, individual scenes, that type of thing. I'll also write essays about what I think the movie's about, for myself, not for anybody else, just for myself. But then I'll get to a point where I really will outline in sort of narrative form the entire film, so that when I find that if I have this really strong foundation, that then it makes the actual writing of the script a lot easier for me because I know what I'm doing. I've always said there's
you have a guide.
I've always said there's 2 different ways that I've gone through in terms of writing scripts. One I love, and one is a chore. And one is that the film exists in my head. It's like it's playing, it's there. So that every day I sit down to write, all I got to do is just sort of take out one scene and describe what's going on. It's like it's very clear. And so I'm just writing what's going on. The bad part is when there's nothing up there, and you're writing that scene and going, okay, I'll put this here, and then now I have to figure out what goes here. That's a slower, more painstaking, unfulfilling approach. So I don't write a script unless I've got a very clear notion of the a version of the film in my head.
Well, Spike doesn't get writer's block, do you?
I don't get writer's block. I don't think I've ever gotten writer's block. I'm a tremendous procrastinator. If there were Olympics in procrastination, I'm Mark Spitz, man. So that's something I have to fight. That's something I have to.
Well, for the students, I think it's important if you understand that there's no one way to do anything.
Right.
So don't try to think that you have to do what Mark said or what I said. You have to find out for yourselves what is the best way. What works best for you.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
hold on. Sorry. Slow your roll. Slow down. You have to find out what works best for you. Because what you want to get to is the results. And not everybody comes from the same place. It's going to take the same path. But the sooner you find out what works best for you, you'll be able to be more productive. So when you're in class and your teachers tell you and your professors tell you here there's only one way to do it, it's not true. And they do the same thing at NYU. Find out what works best for you. There's no one way to do anything. All right.
Well, no, I would completely agree. And I would even say in terms of one thing about what I would describe as procrastination, a lot of that is, I've come to realize that if you're hesitant about writing something, it's generally because you're still. A lot of times, it is good to, take a break. What I'm describing is what works for me.
As you were saying, even
I still, if I don't produce pages, nothing's going to get made. Nothing's going to happen. So you still, no matter what, at the end of the day, you're working. That's just what you have to do. And a lot, and it is. I work by myself. And so, yeah, you've got to do the work. That's it. But again, I agree with Spike. Everybody works their own way. And the one thing I hate is people who on Facebook post, I wrote 5 pages today. I wrote 7 pages today. I wrote 20 pages today. Good for you. What do you want, a medal?
Spike, just because we're going to have to get to the spoilers in a second, but just one last process question. As a director on this film, on Oldboy, how important was your rehearsal process? How much time did you have before the film?
We always try to have 2 weeks, and the rehearsals is, for me, is very important to my process. So it's important for the actors. Even the DP, because a lot of times Sean Bobbitt, the great Sean Bobbitt, hope you've seen, go see 12 Years a Slave. Excellent, phenomenal work. And so it's like with everybody, you get to know it. So here's the thing. Please not think that just rehearsal is about rehearsing lines. It's more than that. And we were doing a lot of stuff which cuts down on talk on the set. Whether you're doing a student film or film one level, you have to work stuff out beforehand. And all these philosophical differences that come up on the set, and that should be worked out way before you start to shoot. And that's why you have to be prepared and really take time to include rehearsal, because it's going to save you in the long run. If there's anything that has to be worked out, differences among the actors, yourselves, work that stuff out before the camera starts to roll, before it rears its ugly head on the set, and everybody has to leave the set while the director and the actor, you don't want to be in that position.
One thing that really sets aside your interpretation from the original, your reinterpretation, is your style. And I thought it was a very smart choice to give it a gritty realism and to kind of scuttle and not even try and redo any of the surrealism or kind of otherworldly feel that was often prevalent in the earlier film. Just
But a lot of that was in Mark's
Sure.
script.
Just talk about that. Your decision to keep it grounded in the real world, so that it's a story that audiences could empathize with, which made it less of a fantasy, which I think really also strengthened it too.
Well, we never try to impose the style on the film. We let the script tell us that. So what Mark wrote, I mean, that was appropriate. We would write a script that was all, about hypnosis and fantasy and that type of stuff. It was gritty.